Hello everybody, and welcome to Film and Video Production Masterclass Week 2. My name is Tom Strnad, and thanks for joining us. And I hope everyone's finished up their first assignment, writing their script, and everyone's ready to move along. So today we'll be looking at shot lists and pre-production. So my name is Tom Strnad. I'm the lead digital artist of the Creator Space, and just want to start off by thanking all our partners in this project. So we have the Canada Council for the Arts, we have our library partners, the Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, and the Wasaga Beach Public Library. So thanks again for everyone in making this project a reality. So in terms of what we'll look at today, let's have a quick overview. So we're going to look at preparing to film and making a shot list. So the idea is that if everyone's, you finished your script or you're still working on it, but you're nearly finished the script, it's something that we can then move along to. So, preparing to film, making a shot list. The next thing we want to look at is types of shots. So, not just preparing the shot list, but understanding what these shots are and choosing the shots. Then from there, we're going to look at finding locations, what to look for. Then we'll look at casting, production design, and we'll have some time for a Q&A as well. So that's today's agenda, what we're looking to do. So again, make sure you've signed up for all of the 4 parts of this. If you can always rewatch part 1 if you're joining us for part 2 now. So definitely check out part 1 if you haven't yet, and that will get you up to date, and then you can continue on with what we're doing today. So that's essentially what we're doing. So let's start off. Let's just look at how do we prepare a shot list, and what does that mean exactly? Preparing a shot list, and taking our script and then looking at what it is to do that. Okay, so the main elements of pre-production. Let's go through that first. Is there's these 3 following items. So once you write your script, it's time to prepare how to film the script. And you got to decide the various aspects of the production and how it will relate to executing it. So we're not just looking at, fine, you can write it, but then how does it get produced? So it's that common phrase always, we hear it, but it's essentially going from script to screen. So, it's fine, you've written it, and now we're going to look at how it goes to screen. And the fun part of this exercise too is you might discover that in analyzing what you've written, maybe it's not possible to do some of the things. So now you get into the production reality. The how will you do what you've written? And sometimes you have to adjust what you've written to figure out how to shoot it. And that's the real fun part of filmmaking, is looking at how to take what you've written and make it into an actual filmed production. So this is part 1's the writing, part 2 is the production, but in between that we have to spend a time doing this pre-production where we take the script and we look at making a shot list and figuring out locations, figuring out our actors, figuring out the look of the film, and all of these types of questions. The more we can figure this out ahead of time, the better we'll be prepared to move forward. So the main thing, part 1, we want to look at shot list. Part 2, locations, casting and production design. And then part 3, getting our equipment. So camera equipment, production equipment. What do we need? It doesn't have to just be video cameras, lights, and microphones. It could also be equipment like, you need a fog machine, or you need some sort of a tool that's going to do something. You need to make something move, like a remote control car. Maybe you need some sort of a object to slide. So we got to think about these kind of mechanics and what kind of equipment you might need. The equipment could be as simple as getting a fishing line to tie to something and slide it across the desk. For example, a coffee mug that slides across and there's a ghost and you don't know how it slid across. That can be done through a fishing line, for example, or a tablecloth that slides. So this kind of special equipment, we got to start thinking. Some things don't exist. You might even have to build it. And that's the real creative part of this too. Okay, so those are 3 things: shot list, locations, casting, and production design. And then also what kind of equipment elements we'll need to make it happen. Okay, so the shot list. So once you have, kind of your script, I should say script, not your locations. Once you have your script, it's time to prepare a shot list. And this will outline all the types of shots you're going to use. So this can be done by lining the script, essentially taking the script and drawing lines to represent each shot, or we can just do it by writing out each shot. And again, our focus is to have a real simple production project. So 3 scenes, a couple actors, or 2 characters, and having those restrictions that we talked about last week. So we can really easily just type out a shot list. And lining the script sometimes becomes important when we're having like a 100-page script, and it could take a long time to type everything out. So you just want to sit down and kind of line it visually. And so that's something we talked about a bit last week too in the editing class. Okay, so the different shots can consist of wide, long shots, medium shots, waist up, close-ups, shoulders up, extreme close-ups, like heads or eyes, and then 2 shots, 2 actors in a scene. So you hear things like that, 2 shot, 3 shot. So if you want the shot to, let's say, have 2 characters, it's just called a 2 shot. And then we know that they're both going to be in the frame. And then you can further define it by how wide of a shot it is. So it might all sound a little bit, okay, what is this? How does this exactly work? So we'll look at the visual representation of what these things mean as well. Okay, so the other thing that you can include in the shot list is the movement. So the movement of the camera. So there could be a pan where you're moving left or right, a tilt where you're moving the camera up or down. Will it be handheld? Will there be a stabilizer, following shots, moving with actors, subjects, things like that. So, always think about, so you're panning across, that's the horizontal movement, left to right, and then you're tilting, you're going up, tilt down. So those are the kinds of terms you can say. You can say pan left, tilt up, and include this in your shot list. Some people even include that kind of camera movement and shot list decision making ahead of time in their scripts. So if you're a writer-director, so if you're writing the script and you're going to be directing the script as well, you can write it that way where you say, okay, we follow, or we pan left to see, character X arrive through the door. And so you can have those kinds of visual notes in your script as well if you're a writer-director. Oftentimes, if you're just writing the script, you wouldn't have that. But this is an exercise in doing that, where we're writer-directors, cinematographers of our whole project here. It's something that you could do in your script as well. But if you haven't, this is the time we're going to add it into the shot list. So you could also put things like, the shot's handheld to make it really clear. That's how you want the shot to be. And then by making these decisions ahead of time, you already know, how the camera's going to move. You need it on a tripod, what kind of lens and all that, which we'll get into next week. But all these kinds of decisions and thinking about how you want it to look and how you want it to work and any kind of camera movement will help make you successful in the actual production stage. Okay, so here's the different types of shots. So it's a nice quick kind of roundup of everything. So you can see from the top here, there's the extreme long shot. Then we have the very long shot. So extreme long shot, you can see super, super far away. That'll usually be, what's used as what's called an establishing shot. You're establishing where you are and what the space is like. So you can see in this particular example, that establishing long shot, or the extreme long shot, shows us that there's a bridge with cars on top. And we wouldn't necessarily get exactly where we are without that extreme long shot. Then you get into like a very long shot, we still see the bridge and the characters and what's happening and so on, right? And then we have the the long shot is the long shot in terms of what do we do with the full character, legs up, feet up, right? And then we have the medium long shot, which is the MLS, and that's like knees up. Then we have the mid shot, medium close up. So it's like chest up. Then we have the close up, and the big close up, extreme close up, like an eye. So that's the visual representation of what we have in terms of what the different types of shots are and how they work. So that's what's happening there. So now let's move along. So shots. Now we got to start thinking about shots and what the story is. Different shots help to tell your film's story differently. So as I was showing in the previous slide there, a wide shot shows the audience where we are and sets up the scene. And those are really important. Whereas a close shot provides details or intimate dialogue with the character. So that's, if you're trying to get into some details, or if someone's talking, you want to usually be in a closer shot. So you can imagine if you're in a wide shot and then two characters are talking, we don't really see who they are. So you're kind of, alienating or leaving the audience out of that action. So that wide shot is telling us, okay, here we are, here's the setup. The close shot says, okay, now here's the characters. And as we move in closer, we get into more details. And with extreme close-ups, we can provide these microscopic details. So we can have initials on a lighter. That could be a clue in the film for something that happens later. It could be clues about who the characters are. We can even get into things like an extreme close-up showing that they have a broken fingernail. And why not? That could be really neat to show. Okay, this is what something about the character. It could be they can have a tattoo that reveals something. They could wear a specific type of piece of jewelry that has some revelations. They can have there could be something about a device they're using. Maybe there's a cable that's hanging out. It looks like it's been tampered with. It could be other things, just like the type of extreme close-up of the type of pottery they're eating from, or the type of plate or ceramics they're using. And it just gives us characterization. So we can see maybe there's a little logo of there's a little cat on the plate, and it can start to tell us, okay, this person likes cats. If there's a cat on the plate and they're have that in their extreme close-up. So something that we might not see in the wide, we can get into this in these closer details. These extreme close-ups can also be for emotional things where we can really get into the eyes. And that's one of the things a lot of filmmakers will say, is that the eyes can really tell us a lot. So by showing someone's like eyes, getting really close in there, you can start to really understand the character. And a good actor can really act with their eyes, and you can see the emotions and what they're thinking. And that kind of an extreme close-up sometimes of the eye can show fear, can show happiness, sadness, anger, anything like that. So sometimes that extreme close-up can be used effectively, even just for like someone's eyes, and working that way. Now, one thing that you should think about too is the scaling of things. And I think in some of our past workshops, I've used a small goat to do different lighting examples and so on. So that's a pretty small scale. So when you'd say, okay, well, anything with that kind of a small scale is maybe an extreme close-up, but you got to look at the shot sizes relative to what you're shooting. So so if I had this grease pencil, if I'm shooting this, so a long shot would be the whole pencil. But even though it's the size of my head, so in my head that would be a close shot or extreme close-up almost. This would be the long shot, so it's scaling down, right? And then if you're looking at what kind of brand is it, that would be the extreme close-up, getting into those details or seeing the edge of the pencil. So everything's scaling like that. So think about that when you're thinking about your shots. If you've written something that has, it's about a coffee mug, is a character. That coffee mug would be scaling itself up and down in those shot sizes as well. So it's really cool to think of that way. Another thing too you can look at is, sometimes you can tell the story with, how many shots do you need? And that's a good question. How many shots do you need to tell the story? It could be one shot. It could be 10 shots. It could be anything like that. And then, what does the film need is always that question. So what if it's one shot for the whole scene? It could also be 10 shots. And, it really comes down to what do you need to tell the story. And that's really what it comes down to. Okay, so shot list. So let's look at demoing this. So I've written a script, and so I have it here just on my final draft on my iPad. And this is something we started working on together last week. So I had like the man and a bird, and that was like my little story idea that I wanted to tell. So what does that mean? So the man and the bird. So here I have a few scenes, and a couple pages like so, and what do we want to do with it? So the what I'm going to do now is let's make a bit of a shot list, and I'm just going to look at. So I went under the wrench here, and I'm just going to go to scene numbers, and I'm going to number and renumber. So that's under scene numbers, under the little wrench. go under scene numbers, and then you go number, renumber. And now you can see what it's done is each interior office day is scene 1, exterior office day is scene 2, exterior office day, there's a scene 3, there's a scene 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so 3, I'm just using 2 locations in this case, but it's, you know, kind of different areas of the location, so I just wanted to keep it pretty simple. So here we go. So here's scene 1. So I look at it and go, okay, interior office day, man sits behind a computer screen. We see stocks ticking by as he quickly types on the keyboard, buy, sell, buy, yes. So he's, you know, quite excited and intense in what he's saying. So, you know, what is that, you know, how does that look in terms of a shot list? So I have, so what I'm going to do is look at, you know, creating man and a bird shot list. So I'm just going to put the title. So what I've done is I'm just going to start up in like a Google Doc like this. And let me just go full screen here. So I have the shot list, and this will just be the man and the bird. Man and bird shot list. So then what I can do is, what I like to suggest, and again, there's different ways to do it, and I'm not always, you know, saying what's necessarily the best way. Let me see if we can zoom in on here a little bit. Let's zoom in. There we go. It's a bit better. Okay, so the man and a bird. So the shot list. So what I like to then suggest is look at the scene numbers. So here we have scene 1. And I want to do the same thing. So what I like to do then is say, okay, I'm going to have scene 1 hyphen shot A. So we basically do scene 1 hyphen shot A, so 1A. Then the next shot would be 1B, 1C. And by writing it out this way, I have a really good understanding of, you know, the different shots I'm going to do at each scene. So it's the like numeric, alphanumeric kind of system. So the scene number 1, then I don't even have to write out that it's interior office day. I just can go back to the script and say, okay, scene 1, then we know where it is in the script. So it's kind of like a complementary document, the shot list. And that's the way I like to recommend you can do it. And it's in its simplest form. So I'm using a Google, just a Google Doc. You can use any kind of, you know, notepad, word processing kind of software, anything like that, to just type it in. And then there's some software, there's like different apps, and we'll just talk about that after as well a bit. And, you know, they can be pretty, you know, exciting to use, and there's a lot of options with them too. So what I'm going to do is, okay, so interior, a man sits behind a computer screen. So I'm going to go 1 hyphen A, and I'm going to do a long shot. So LS, man at desk with computer, right? So that establishes where we are. So that's like our first one, establish where we are, and we can go, you know, kind of go from there. So yeah, so that's perfect. So then the next one, if you go to 1B, will be the next shot. So we see stocks ticking by. So that's on the screen. So I want to go extreme close up, computer screen with stocks, right? So now that's like my shot 1, shot 2, right? And that way I have my long shot established, man at the desk, number 2, extreme close up of the computer screen with stocks ticking by, which is great. And then he types on the keyboard. So I'm going to do another one here. Close up, man types on keyboard from overhead. So now I can also, you know, as much of a description as you can in the shot. So I'm like, okay, it's going to be close up, man's typing on the keyboard, and I want to do like an overhead shot so I can see like the fingers typing on the keyboard. So that gives me a general idea already. Okay, I'm starting to visualize how this scene will unfold in, you know, breaking it down into shots. And then he's going to talk. He does his line. So I want to cover that in one more shot. And I'm going to just do a close shot. Man yells at screen. Right? So that's mainly like his dialogue. But, you know, so it's a small scene, and you can see it's 3 sentences, but it's 4 shots. And that's what I think I need to really kind of establish. Here we are, a man at the desk, establish that there's these stocks ticking by, typing on the keyboard, and giving us that kind of activity. Like he's really busy, he's doing some sort of stock trading or business type work, and then he's yelling at the screen, and he's like, buy, sell, buy, you know, and that like in a close-up. And that's it. So four shots for what is just, you know, scene 1, which is, you know, just a little, let's see if maybe it'll be bigger that way. That's better. You know, so for scene 1, we can see what that looks like. It just, you know, interior office, man sits behind a computer screen. We see stocks ticking by as he quickly types on the keyboard, buy, sell, buy, yes. So 3 sentences, and I'm saying I want to do 4 shots, right? So that's how that would work. And then we just keep going from there. So I would do, you know, the same for shots for scene 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And in the shot list, so my next section, I would just continue. I usually would just leave a space there. I'll go 2A, and just, you know, so here's the bird is going to land outside the office window. Bird lands outside office window. And again, I want to do that long shot. So I think, you know, let's establish it, a wide shot, long shot, and make it work that way. So that's really neat. And then we, you know, we'll do kind of the opposite. So 2B, I'm going to do 2B, medium shot, POV. So point of view bird, man at his computer, bird limps forward and has a slightly bent wing. Okay, so that I want to really get into like a close up. Bird limps forward. And then 2D, I'm going to do medium shot, man approaches bird. 2E, extreme close up. I want to really see the bird's eyes looking at man. And maybe, well, I even feel like I'd want to do one more extreme close up, man's face looking at bird. So we can really have that exchange of, you know, between the two characters. So that's kind of where it comes up there. So we got 2A, long shot, 2B, medium shot, 2C, close up, bird limps forward, 2D, medium shot, man approaches the bird. Then we have this exchange of these 2 extreme close-ups. The bird's eyes looking at the man's face looking at the bird. So again, 6 shots, you know, and but it could just be done in 1 shot. We can just have a long shot, the bird's there, and the man comes out, and that's it. You just got to think about how do you want to tell the story. And I want to have all these little details because I'm feeling that that's kind of the style of the story that I want to approach and how I'd like to do it. So, you know, so that's kind of the fun part is that, you know, it could be as simple as 1 shot, it could be simple as a few. I really challenge everyone for this workshop is to, you know, see if you can do scenes with a few shots. And, you know, think about the different types of shots and combinations. We might not even end up using all of these when it comes down to editorial, but, you know, it's a fun way to look at, you know, what that means and how that can kind of work out in the storytelling process of the different shots. Okay, so we've done that. So if we're doing a shot list, so I just did it in the document, add in your shots. The other thing I put here, number 2 option, you can print the script out, use a marker to write on the script directly. So if you like to just right with paper, then there's an app like Shot Designer. And that's kind of interesting, and I'll just show it. So this is something I looked at today, and let's see, zoom editing. So, you know, so there's something like this. This is Shot Designer, and what it lets you do is you can put different characters, so an object. So you can go with the plus, and I can say, you know, add a character, and I'll put a gray male, and you decide where it is, and you start to place everybody in the shot. So this really helps you kind of navigate through what it will look like. You know, and it's kind of a different idea, like kind of the overhead, the bird's eye view of where everyone's placed. So this starts to help you look at the kind of spatial distancing of of the people within the shot or the characters just beyond the shot. So this could be kind of a part two, the shot designer. And we're going to look at this a little bit more next week when we can do cameras and different camera, the lenses and this kind of stuff too. So it's really a cool app. So shot designer, free app for on an iPad and an iPhone, so like an iOS app. So that's a really cool one you can check out as well. Okay, so locations, let's move right into that. So we've kind of done a shot list there. I started that, got a couple scenes, I got a few more left. So that's something that you need to finish with your script. Then we move into the locations. What do we want to look for? So stuff to think about. Larger spaces will allow for easier production and lighting. 2, the space should reflect the vision of the script. So, what is it? So if I'm talking about an office, I don't want to set it in a cafeteria. The man in a cafeteria. Nope, that's not what's there. So, great, we have a cafeteria, but we need an office. That's what's written. Something close to it. You can always make things adjust a little bit. Here's a big note. White walls and ceilings are not ideal because they reflect a lot of light. So you're always trying to look at different spaces. You can see even here in my studio space, I have pretty dark walls, non-reflective light surfaces, just so I can see the editing and the color and so on. So there's no white walls here to have reflective surfaces. So, if you have a darker room versus a white walled room, go with the darker room. Even if it means adjusting a little bit, you'll have a much more successful time filming in it. And we'll learn more about that why too as well. But just an upfront concept. If someone's filming for you, a director of photography, they will really enjoy you more if, as a director and producer of your film, if you're choosing locations that don't have white walls and ceilings. Sometimes it calls for that. The script might be that, so be it. But if it's not necessary, try to avoid that. Okay, finding the right one. So here's kind of a quick idea. So friends and family are the best place to start, or you can maybe just using a space that you live in or work in, and that's already there. It's available. It's your space. So what spaces do you have access to? Start in that kind of inner circle. Then you can look at, okay, I know this friend, he has this, or he or she has this. Maybe I can use that auto garage I need for a scene. And you can even go so far as even writing your script based on some locations that you already know. So that's another way to do it. If you really want to, someone has access to something amazing, like a, I don't know, recording studio with a drum set, and you want that to be part of the story and it's really cool looking, you can already write into the script, something like that. So the next part is scouting or previewing. Really important to go and visit the location if you don't already know it. So if someone says, hey, I got this really cool garage, it would be great for your film, go check it out, because maybe it won't be that great for your film. And here's a note, don't be afraid to decide to use another location if it's not good. That's the point of checking it out. Doesn't mean you're stuck with it. Then the tech scout, we hear this term, sometimes you'll hear this term, and it's basically looking at the location, seeing if there's outlets, if the space is big enough. So here's some samples, visuals. Here's what I call just a small interior. And then, can this work? So you can see it's really small. This is the inside of like a little hut, a little cabin, kitchen, living room, all in one. So, can this work? And that's the question. So, if it's written to be in this kind of a space, fine. Maybe it can work. There's a lot of windows, a lot of white walls, and it's really small. So you can imagine just putting a camera up and having a couple people like yourself and a cinematographer, or if you're just doing it yourself and even 2 actors, you're pretty crammed in there. So, can this work? That's the question. It could work. And more importantly, if it's important, I would say sure. If this script that you wrote doesn't call for this kind of a cramped space, then I would avoid something like this. Now we look at something like this. So here's a large interior. Can this work? So here you can see there's darker wood beams and walls, and you have a lot bigger space for something that's the same kind of idea. There's a breakfast bar, living room, dining room, table. So this is kind of the opposite of the previous one. So this can work. And now the question is, maybe it's too big for what you wrote. Maybe it's too much for what the character. So if it's someone. Someone's a student and they're, or someone is in between jobs, or, there's different character types. They're living they're in the city. It's set in like Toronto. You wouldn't really have this kind of a space in Toronto commonly, so it wouldn't make sense. But if this is someone's in a cottage, or someone's the student is moving back home with their parents, that can work for the story. So you got to make sure a large interior can still work for the story that you're telling. So that's really important. So this one's definitely a better choice, but again, will it fit the location? So this isn't ideal, but again, if it's really important for the script, make it work. We can use wider lenses, but you'll be definitely restricted in where you can move. And here's kind of the antithesis of that previous one: super large space, but again, maybe it's too much for the story. Think about something like Parasite. The characters end up in a house, like this kind of a mansion, but they start off in a really small house. So that's important, how those locations can tell us that story. So if you haven't seen Parasite, definitely check it out. But that's a great one in terms of use of locations to tell the story of kind of the everyday working person and then the super uber rich in their mansions. So that's a really telling story. Okay, so we've got our locations, great. Now we need to have some sort of actors to help tell the story. Maybe you're using your pets, or you're using inanimate objects are the characters. So here we're talking about actors, like people who are playing characters in your film. And again, I made a note that you don't have to necessarily have characters, but if you are, you're casting. So finding the right cast for an indie film, you usually need to reach out. You start with family and friends. Find out who you already know, and you could write it that way too. Ask them to appear for free, as a favor. Then you could go online. You can look at placing a posting on social media or other online resources, and you could be searching for aspiring actors. And in a place like here, South Georgian Bay region, you can also reach out. We have several local community theater groups. Maybe you can reach out to them and say, hey, I'm looking for an actor. I'm doing this film. Here's a script. Would you mind coming out? Now, we've made a suggestion to keep these really short, a couple pages, just a few scenes. So, it's something you can hopefully film in an afternoon or one day. So it's not a huge commitment. It gets harder if you have a longer script and you're like, hey, I need you for a month. And then asking for a favor, it's going to be a lot harder. So in that case, if you have a longer script, you might want to think about, can you have someone commit to some weekends, or maybe, after work in the evenings. So, so that's the main thing. So right now, I do need to mention this too, just with our current state of the COVID-19 situation. Definitely you need to work with people in your social bubble. So, working with your family, would be ideal. Family, friends who are in your social bubble, that would be fantastic. Otherwise, try to, if you can maintain social distancing, that's great. Otherwise, you might have to shoot this, after our things are less restricted. So just want to mention that. But, hopefully we can continue in some fashion, or, shoot one angle with one person and don't have the other person in the scene. You can shoot kind of one and one, and we'll look at that next week. Some of the how to be creative with health restrictions. That's kind of our new normal now. And so if you reach out to that local community theater group, you might find an actor. And then here's offer a collaboration and say, look, I'm this is my first film, or I'm exploring some of these new themes, and I want to try something different. Offer the experience. Hey, you can gain some more experience as an actor. And I always say maybe you can offer a free meal. Like if they're coming out for the day and they're acting, order some food, get some pizza, get some takeout food, and give them a free meal. And that's really great to do it. If it's going to be a bit of a longer, heavier shoot, you can also maybe offer some small payment. Consider, can you maybe pay some minimum wage if you need someone for 3 to 5 hours, and paying them $14, $15 an hour would be kind of nice too. And if you can budget for a little bit of that. Otherwise, if you can give some food, snacks, water, that's always, I think, kind of expected. So that's the best practices. And it's kind of a nice thing when you show up somewhere, you're doing some work, a favor, and at least you get some food and drinks and you're taken care of. Everybody likes that. So that's my little spiel on best practices and trying to take care of the people that are working with you on your crew. So if it's just yourself and maybe you're acting in it too, hey, that's up to you if you don't want to eat or drink. But if someone's coming out to help, it doesn't hurt to offer them some snacks and food. Okay, so finding the right person for the part. And this is a fun part too. So when casting, look for the actors or people that represent what the character is in your script. Characteristics, visually, spirit of the person. And the other way, you can always adapt the script to fit a person. And that's, a very common occurrence. Think of lots of times you'll hear director writers talking about how, they wrote a part for a specific actor in mind. And we hear that all the time. They have kind of in their mind a visual of its specific actor. They already want to do it that way. So even though you've written a script, I kept mine pretty broad. I didn't get into the description. So it's a man. It could become a woman. It could become a child. I could definitely, rework it. It would change things drastically, but, I could make it work. The same kind of themes, and it might have a different message. So just think about how far you can go with your adjustments. And then you can go back and modify the characters. If you have you find someone like, yeah, this person's really good, but it's just a little bit different, their characteristics or what they can bring to the part. So you want to maybe modify in the script and use their strengths rather than their weaknesses. So if they are, really great with acting with their eyes, we talked about that, focus on that. Maybe they don't need to talk a lot. If they are kind of newer and don't have a lot of acting experience, then maybe focus more on some dialogue to help them tell their character's state and kind of tell the audience what they're feeling rather than just showing it. So those are those things to think about. And then seek out actors that have some experience, ideally, and at a minimum, make sure they're comfortable being in front of the camera, because the last thing you want is to have someone come out and then they don't want to be in front of the camera, and and that could be a problem, like if they're not comfortable being in front of the camera, and then you have to potentially, you can't film. So really kind of pre-vet that, make sure they're happy doing that. Okay, production design. Here's the really next exciting part of preparing your pre-production for the film. So production design consists of everything you see in front of the camera, along with the location and the actors. So it kind of breaks down to the following. So we've got wardrobe. What are the actors wearing? Then we have props. So what objects do the actors handle or use in the scene? So I've said coffee mug, very common. A cell phone, a smartphone. That's an object. That's a prop. So if your script has a cell phone, make sure that you have your cell phone, or if you want to get a prop cell phone, to not use your actual phone. Think about that too. If you're using like a old, I want to say traditional phone, like a landline, make sure you have a landline that they can use if it's written in the script. It might be obvious. You think, oh, I have a phone. Or you go to a location and you think, hey, there's going to be a phone there. There might not be a phone. A lot of people just have cell phones now. So those are those kinds of things to make sure. Set decoration is the next one. What fills in the location and set? This can be lamps, paintings, photos. Even look here. So I have like a lamp in the background. I have desks and there's different items. So as a location, that's the set design. You see like computers, you see a lamp, and so on. So all these kind of elements behind me are part of the set design. What I'm wearing is my wardrobe. I'm using this grease pencil has been my prop today. So, these kinds of things are really neat in terms of figuring out. And last thing here too, vehicles. That's kind of its own category in film. And, are there going to be scenes in a car? So that's always a question. And I've also made the note, maybe it's another vehicle. It could be, someone's on a bicycle. So again, you got to make sure that you have a bicycle and that, you're using, you have that available to you. So color palette. And this is, so we figured out just the props, mugs. But remember, a mug can be, a million different colors and shades and so on, and varieties and combinations of colors. This is where we get into the exciting part of color palette. So this is the kind of next stage of production design. Hope, you might have the ability to do a little bit of this. See how much, and this is the challenge for this workshop, see how much you can do in your production design and color palette choice. With wardrobe, if your actor asks, hey, what kind of clothes do I need to wear? So think about the style, think about the colors, right? So if you want everything to be kind of orange, red, see if they can bring orange or red shirts or some variety of that. rather than just a purple shirt that would be not in your color palette, right? So a color design or a color palette can help you create a specific look or mood for the film. And then once you choose it, everything relates around that. So that's how then you decide what your wardrobe's going to look like, what the props are going to look like. So if your main color is orange, maybe you want props to be orange. So for example, I'm just looking here, something that I have like on the desk. So, you know, little simple things. You can be like, okay, well, this is the orange book, right? So if, you know, this could be a prop in the background, and you can see how there's like the orange, there's a little bit of orange text in blue, right? So that could be part of it. You know, whereas, you know, here's like a handle that's blue. So, you know, if this is like a handle on something, a kettle, and I'm wearing blue and I have blue and blue, you can see I'm getting this palette going just with props, wardrobe, and so on. It doesn't have to be everything, but the more you can work with that, the more interesting your production design is and the mood you're using for the story that you're telling. So let's look at some examples. We start to look at some film samples. So here's from Amélie, a French film. So here's, you know, kind of look at what are some of the greens. You have really specific reds. Look at the walls in the background. You know, very red. That whole idea, again, what I was talking about, not having those bright white walls. So you can see here's kind of a swatch palette of the different colors in this scene. Here's from the Joker. You can see the very, you know, blue, gray, purple, and, you know, there's the exit sign, the red. That really pops, and that's perhaps intentional to match his lips. You know, and looking at this, I would probably, you know, that exit sign's there, but it maybe could have gotten rid of it in a critique. Kind of, you know, ruins the color palette in a way. So, you know, things like that. You can see just by covering the exit sign, that could have helped the scene. So it's really fun to even criticize any other films that you watch and when looking for the color palettes in those films. Okay, so moving along. So here we start to get into vehicles. So we have, you know, the red on the boat and the very bright orange, reddish overall look. But you see the vehicle starts to fit the production design, the red, the color red being used in that vehicle. Here's another vehicle one. So see how that color of this Ford truck really matches the Western, you know, brown palette of the scenes, and that's a really cool way to look at it. So, you know, make sure it matches in the color. So if we had, let's say, a blue truck, it could kind of still match with the mountains. If we had a red truck, it would definitely not match in this color palette. So it would be out of the color of the design. Again, as indie filmmakers, you know, if your friend has a red truck and you're trying to go for a brown look, it might be a struggle. But then you can redo it the other way and say, look, I have access to a red truck. Maybe I can film it outside of a red garage and really work with that color red. Sometimes our creative constraints of working with what we have can lead us to you know, decisions on what the color palette is and working with that. And it could be great, could lead to great results. So never think of it as a restriction, but, you know, through restriction, sometimes there's great creative solutions. And I think that's a way to look at as we produce our shorts here. Okay, so that one. And then here's from Parasite. And this one's kind of, I'm leaving to everyone to think about, okay, what's the palette here? And I think this is a great one of, look at the location, they're folding pizza boxes. So this is like the, you know, the working poor family. And if, you know, if you've seen the film, you kind of know where it goes, but this really presents the situation, right? They're in a small, you know, really dirty shambles, living conditions. But start to look at the palette of colors here. You know, the boxes are obviously a little bit brighter, contrasting their lives. That pizza box is super crazy in all of its color, but it's still complementing what's there. So we look at the blue collar on the father's shirt, his daughter's shirt blue, the son's blue, all those palettes are very similar. The green top of the mother, she has blue pants. And you can start to see how the production design is matching along. So that blue wall and even the white tiles are bluish, right? And there's a bit of a blend, like some of this is post-producing, but the more you can do this in your color palette on the set and in pre-production in your design, purchasing wardrobe or, putting together wardrobe that will match your color palette. You can see all the blues and greens here in the wardrobe really fit that color palette well. And that's all part of it. So there's blue greens and all the wardrobe. Primarily the bluish, that bluish tint is predominant with a little bit of blacks and the green accents there as well. So that's a great way to look at the scene and getting the wardrobe together. So again, when someone asks you what should I wear, your actors, think about what is your production design. What kind of room will you be in and how can that work? And it could be complementary, it can also be contrasting. Like we can say, okay, you're filming in a yellow room and you're going to want someone to wear, I don't know, green so that they totally pop out. Maybe you have a couple characters, they're both wearing blue and the other character's wearing red. And then it really puts a contrast. Think about that standard concept too. Think of like a Star Wars, you have the lightsabers are green, red, good, evil. Then you have the, Darth Vader in black, and stormtroopers in black and white, and really creates this kind of tones of that production design and what everyone looks like. So take any kind of film and look at the production design and the color palettes. It's a really interesting observation to look at and try to figure out what films are doing. Okay, so here's your week 2 production assignment. So I want everyone to line your script, create that shot list. So if you haven't finished writing a script, then create the shot list. Next, you're going to want to find locations that will work for your script. You may already have this in mind based on what you wrote. Cast your roles if you need to find actors. You might be acting it yourself, which is totally great and fine, and it's really a good way to keep things simple and cost down as well. Decide on your production design colors. Maybe watch some films too. Watch some of your favorite films. Look at their color palettes. Think about what they're doing. And then once you have your design colors and stuff, you can start to choose the wardrobe. So I kind of flipped it around, but you'll need to know what wardrobe is necessary or what props are necessary. So wardrobe can be really basic, it can be really specific. Someone needs to wear something, it's part of the story. Props, like do they use it or it's just sitting there? Sometimes you just want it for decoration. If they're sitting in a kitchen, it wouldn't be empty, right? You'd want to have glasses, mugs, things like that. And then any other items you might need. So we want to figure that all out. And that way you're ready to go. And then from there, next week we're going to get into getting all of our equipment and figuring out what equipment we need, what equipment we want to use, and all the production process elements. So this is your assignment. So for next week, before we meet, if you can finish all of these elements, so you'll have a script already from week 1. You'll have all of this pre-production, the shot list and locations, casting, production design, and wardrobe props, and any set decoration items that you need. And then we'll be ready to go. Okay, so let's have I got a bit of time for Q&A here. So I'll just open up the Q&A, or you can write in the chat. I'm just going to see if there's any questions here. So yeah, feel free to ask any questions. Again, I will have information available. You can email me. So again, Tom, I'm just going to type it in here to the chat. Tom@tbmcs.ca. Send me an email if you want to send me your script. If you want me to give you some feedback. If you have questions about this pre-production, feel free to send me an email. I'd be happy to answer that way as well. And yeah. And then just to know here, I saw one question here. So yeah, make sure you sign up for all 4 weeks. They're all individual ticketed weeks. If you do sign up for 1 week, you'll find all the online event workshop links in there. So you'll find week 1, 2, 3, 4 in all of them. But ideally, if you sign up for all 4 separately ticketed events, you'll get the direct links, and you'll also get the reminders. So, but just make sure you go into week 1, 2, 3, or 4. Perfect. Okay, so yeah, no, I think that's great. I'm not seeing any questions here, so I think we're in good shape. That means everyone's knows what we need to do. So yeah, again, yeah, thanks for joining me. I'm really excited to see what scripts you're coming up with. Again, send them over to me, tom@tbmcs.ca. You can check out our YouTube channel through that website as well, and to learn more about what's coming ahead. And if you haven't sign up for it, there's still time to do it. This afternoon at 1, I have my editing workshop. So once you shoot this film in this masterclass, you may want to tag along and do that editing workshop so you can learn how to start editing this dramatic scene as well. So once again, I'm Tom Strnad. I'm the lead digital artist of the Creator Space. Thank you so much for joining us, and definitely want to. Here's a good question. So let's look at this quickly. So the release forms. Excuse me. So release forms in terms of what you need for actor contracts can get complicated and so on. The main thing that you'll want to do is just have something that the person can state, I agree to be in your film. They can even just say it on camera before you start filming. So I agree to be in this film and act in this role. So that's always great. So in terms of this workshop, we're looking at this as non-commercial, film that you're doing for learning purposes. So I'm not really looking at it as something that you're necessarily releasing. So it's for our workshop purposes. So there's not too much of an issue with someone being on it. If it's something you want to release, make sure you look at having a release form. You can find these online. Again, I'm not giving legal advice here, but if you look these up online, you can find actor release forms or contracts. Basically, it just states that the person agrees to be in the film that you're doing, and then you're good to go from there. So that's great question there. So in terms of just getting the person's permission, obviously you discuss that with them and they want to be in your film. So just make sure that everyone's aware of what they're doing and so on. So you can look up release forms, actor contracts online, find one that works for you. If you can't find one, you can just get the person to say that on camera, that I agree to be in your film, and that's it. Then you have them on record saying that. But otherwise, just for our workshop purposes, you don't have to worry about those. If they're just internal, we're just sharing it here with us. But if you do plan on releasing it, you should have a release form. So that's, great question there. Okay, so thanks again to all our partners for making this happen. Canada Council for the Arts. We have all our library partners, and exciting, we have more and more equipment access is coming to the Collingwood Public Library as well soon. Currently, the equipment we'll talk about next week, you can get through the Blue Mountains Public Library, Wasaga Beach Public Library, if you're a member there. So we'll go over that all next week. So again, please prepare your next assignment work for week 3, and I will see everybody next week.